Welcome to my art chat. I had selected this original piece of art by Salvador Dali. This piece is called Soft Watch at the Moment of Its First Explosion. And I had selected this because it's a piece of art that I've had in my home and in my office, and now it's in my classroom at school, because I've just always felt some kind of a draw to this style, and also to the concept of the explosion of time and this mechanism being soft and flexible. And so for this idea, I had to go and do some investigation about Dali and why he would have come up with this piece of art. And what I found was that this is actually part of an entire family of work that Salvador Dali did. So I have to kind of step back and give you a little information. Back in 1931, Salvador Dali did a small oil on canvas painting, and this is it, and it was called The Persistence of Memory. The Persistence of Memory is a piece that he actually put together in the course of just a couple of hours of time, and it's one of his most famous pieces. The interesting part about his work is that he is a surrealist, so things tend to be illusionary in his work, somewhat real, but always something a little bit different to make them seem skewed. Persistence of Memory is actually what Mr. Dali said was a still life, but it was a still life of a dreamscape instead of a landscape. So, in other words, it would have been a snapshot or a photograph from a dream. And he enjoyed describing what all of these different pieces in this piece of artwork are. First and foremost, I can let you know, this big blob here in the center, when I first saw this piece and before I did any investigation, I thought it looked like a giant eye, like a weird face. And investigation showed that this is in fact his self-portrait, and he apparently used this sort of an image in this sort of sleeping posture in a lot of his different pieces of work. So people who are familiar with Dali's work can see this in many different places and know that that is supposed to be his self-portrait. This landscape here in the back, these are the cliffs and the landscape of his homeland in Spain, and it also appears in a lot of his work because even though he lived here in the States for a long time, his home in Spain was his first love. Over here there's an olive tree. Salvador Dali believed in nature and the life that the earth gives to us as humans, and he believed that the olive tree was one of the most beautiful things that the earth provides for us. It's nurturing and it's giving, and he chose to show this particular olive tree as dead because of the period of time in 1931 they were looking at wartime and a lot of change in the world. The two main pieces that I really wanted to point out to you are the insects, the ants and the flies, and the melting watches. And this is where it got interesting because this is how I found out that this is where the watch at first explosion came from. The melting watch idea is actually part of his era of time when Dali went into idea of softness versus hardness, or nature versus technology, freedom versus restriction. And the melting watches was his concept about time and machine, time and the machine that measure it, and how we as humans have come out of a natural state of time where eternity was our only measurement, and how we've compartmentalized our time into seconds and minutes and hours, and how it rules our days. when I found that out, it made sense to me, and I realized that that's why this painting, this particular print, has always called to me, because I too feel the strains of time and often feel pressured by the different things that I have to go and do and be in particular places. So this explosion of time and this melting away of the confines of time to me was just something that I connected with, even without knowing the history behind it. We were very lucky for as a group of people who are interested in art. We were very lucky to have Salvador Dali around for many, many years, because a lot of his pieces, being surreal in this type of way, had what we consider to be hidden meanings. He meant something by them, and we were fortunate because he was very open with his public and told everyone what it was that he implied and what he meant. He was very good about telling everyone what it was that he saw as the truth of the world and how he was transposing that into his artwork. So the last thing I want to show you is at the period of time when he did this, the concept of explosion and compartmentalizing to him started being very prominent in his work about the same time as the first atomic bomb being dropped. And I wanted to show you that this is a second piece. It is called The Disintegration of the Persistence of Memory. And I wanted to hold them side by side for you to see that they're very much the same piece of work, and it just shows a mindset, a difference in Salvador Dali and his way of thinking, his way of seeing the world, his way of processing what he saw and turning into art. You can see that after the war was over in 1950, I believe it was 54, when he did this piece, he had a completely different style of art, style of discussion. And I guess in closing, what I'd like to say is that Salvador Dali's work is all very, very interesting to me. He was very philosophical in the things that he tried to portray in his work, and it's always going to be interesting to me from now on to look at any of his pieces of work and try to find these things that run as veins of truth throughout the different pieces. So again, this particular piece has been near and dear to my heart for a long time, and I was very glad to have an opportunity to discuss it and its meaning in my life. Thank you.